Welcome to another deep dive, everybody. Today, we're going beyond just the greatest hits of history. We're going to look at a mix of figures, some you know and some you might not. But they all have one thing in common. They were historically significant.
And how we actually decide who is historically significant. That's the really interesting part. It's way more than just fame. That's why we're going to use this framework called the 5 R's of historical significance.
Okay, the 5 R's, huh? I am intrigued. Tell me more. And tell our listeners, too.
All right, so think of it like this. Instead of just names and dates, we are going to be looking for ripples.
Yeah.
Like, how did a person's life leave a mark on the world, and how big of a mark was it? So the 5 R's help us figure that out. Like, was this person remembered? Did they reveal something important about their time? Did other people remark on them back then and even today? Did their actions, like, resonate through time? And finally, did their life actually result in some big change?
So you're saying it's not just about being a household name. It's about, like, how deep and wide their impact was. Now, in the stuff you sent me, we've got people like Winston Churchill, Alan Turing, J.W.M. Turner, and Jane Austen, like big names. I bet we can still find some interesting stuff about them, though, even if everyone already knows who they are.
Oh, definitely. Take Alan Turing, for example. I
Yep.
mean, everybody knows him for, cracking codes in World War II. Huge deal, of course. But if you use those 5 R's, you realize, oh, wow, his impact on computer science was way bigger than just that. It's like he laid the foundation for how all computers work today, something that touches every single part of our lives.
Wow.
Like, it's the perfect example of how someone everyone knows still totally nails those result and resonate criteria, and maybe in ways we don't always think about.
So, like, looking deeper, right, that's the key.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the unsung heroes, those who did some big things, but whose names maybe didn't become super famous.
Right.
Like Betty Boothroyd, who was the very first woman Speaker of the House of Commons. I gotta admit, I didn't know anything about her story until you sent me this stuff, but now I am fascinated.
Well, her story's amazing, right? Serving from 1992 to 2000, like, she was such a trailblazer at a time when women were still fighting so hard to be equals in politics. Makes you wonder, how many other women throughout history did incredible things that never made it into the history books?
Totally. And that's where this whole 5 R's thing feels super important. It's like a spotlight shining on those stories that maybe got overlooked.
For sure.
Okay, next up, we've got Lily Parr, who played football, soccer in England. She scored almost 1,000 goals during her career. This is back when people, well, society, like, actively discouraged women from playing football. Some places even banned it. I mean, can you imagine being that good at something that people told you is unsuitable?
It really makes you think, like how societal norms basically change history. Lily's story is just incredible. She challenges everything we thought we knew about women's roles in sports, and the fact that she just kept going despite all these obstacles, man, that speaks volumes. Like, even today, we're still fighting for gender equality in sports, and her story is a part of that, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. And it makes you ask, like, how many more stories like Lily's are out there, whose voices got missed because of the way history is written? And, like, who even decides what gets told anyway?
Yeah. That is the question, isn't it? We
Hmm.
need to be asking that constantly. It's about digging up those untold stories and realizing how diverse, like, all the experiences are that made the world the way it is.
Okay, before we go to the next amazing person, I am curious, what is it about Lily Parr's story that stands out most to you?
Hmm. I think what gets me is she achieved all that. I mean, just think about it.
Yeah.
At a time when people were telling women to stay on the sidelines.
Yeah.
So she wasn't just a fantastic athlete. She was like a symbol pushing back against all those rules.
Oh, that's such a good point. It adds like a whole new layer of meaning to it.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep this deep dive going. Who's next on our list of amazing people? Okay, I'm ready for more. Hit me with another one of these incredible people.
Right, let's talk about Betty Snowball. So she holds the record for the most runs scored in a single innings in English women's cricket. And get this, she held that record for 50 years.
Wow, 50 years. That's wild.
It is. And her record is still the highest score ever by an English woman.
That's insane. But it's like, gotta be about more than just the numbers, right? What's her story say about the world back then?
Right. It's so interesting to think about the context.
Yeah.
At that time, most people didn't take women's sports seriously. They were seen as just a hobby, something ladies did for fun, not like real competition. But here comes Betty Snowball, just totally crushing it in this sport that everyone thinks of as, like, all about men being strong and powerful.
Right.
It really flips our ideas about what women were capable of and how, like, society held them back, you know?
Totally. Her achievement means something totally different when you look at it like that. It's like, wow, she was so talented and so determined, even when everyone was telling her she couldn't.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And there's another interesting thing about her story. So she stopped playing professionally and became a teacher. And guess what she taught?
Let me guess. Cricket.
Yep, cricket and math.
So she, like, used her position to teach and inspire the next generation of athletes.
Oh,
That's so cool. It's like she really embodies that whole resulted in significant change thing, making things better in more than just sports.
you got it. Okay, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about William Tuke. He was this philanthropist who, like, totally changed how we think about mental health care.
Oh, yeah. William Tuke, his story really stuck with me. I mean, thinking about mental health care back then, yikes, it was a completely different world.
You can say that again. Back in the 1700s, how they treated mental illness was just awful. It was, like, so misunderstood.
Yeah.
But Tuke, he was a Quaker, and he was just, like, really bothered by it. So he decided to do something about it. He founded this hospital called the Retreat in York, specifically for people struggling with mental health challenges. And get this, the whole approach was based on compassion, like treating people with dignity and kindness. It was revolutionary.
I was reading about the retreat. They focused on better living conditions, like hygiene and nutrition, and even gave people a chance to learn job skills. It sounds like he was way ahead of his time in, like, getting that mental health care had to be about more than just locking people away.
He was. I mean, think about it. He was fighting for people with mental health conditions to be treated with dignity and respect way back then, long before most people even thought about it. And his work at the retreat, well, it started this whole ripple effect, influencing how mental health care was done everywhere, not just in England. He truly changed the conversation, about how we care for people struggling with these challenges, really hitting that result criterion in a big way.
It's incredible how, like, one person's idea, their vision, can change society so much. And it reminds us that you don't have to be, like, a president or a king to be historically significant.
That's so true. Regular people, everyday people, can make history happen. All it takes is passion and the will to do something good.
Which brings us to another one of those everyday heroes, Ellen Wilkinson.
Okay, Ellen Wilkinson, lay it on me. What made her so special?
Buckle up. Ellen Wilkinson was a powerhouse. She was in the Labor Party, a member of parliament, and, like, this total champion for social justice. But the thing that really stands out to me is her role in the Jarrow Crusade.
The Jarrow Crusade, what was that?
Okay, picture this. It's 1936. Jarrow is this town that's been, like, devastated by unemployment. Everyone's poor, nobody has a job. So 200 unemployed men from Jarrow decide to march all the way to London.
Wait, they marched the whole way to London? Yep. To demand jobs and better living conditions. It was a powerful statement, showing the world how much the working class was struggling.
Wow. I mean, that's some serious dedication, marching all that way. And Ellen Wilkinson, she was right there with them.
Oh, yeah. She was a huge supporter of the Jarrow Crusade. She used her platform as a politician to, like, amplify their voices and make sure the whole country was paying attention to their cause. She really understood how powerful it could be when people came together to fight for something. And she never backed down from challenging the way things were.
Wow, she sounds like a true leader. And her story definitely feels like it's resonating, across time. That fight for social justice, it's, like, just as relevant today as it was back then. You almost wonder if she'd be leading those marches today if she was still around.
Oh, that's a really interesting thought. It shows how some things never really go away, like economic inequality, the fight for workers' rights. It's all still going on.
Okay, so I'm seeing a theme here. All these people, Betty Boothroyd breaking down barriers in Parliament, William Tuke changing how we think about mental health, Ellen Wilkinson standing up for the working class, they all show that even one person can make a huge difference, even when things seem impossible.
It really makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like, history isn't just about dates and wars and stuff. It's about all the people who fought for good, even when nobody was giving them credit.
And their stories, like, make you think about what you can do, like, what impact do I want to have? What things do I want to change? It's pretty inspiring. You know what's really cool? It's how these people, like, they weren't kings or queens or anything, right? They were just regular people, a politician, a soccer player, a cricket player, someone who wanted to help people with mental illness, and an activist. But they all did such amazing things.
And that's exactly why it's so fascinating to learn about these unsung heroes. They make us question, like, who really matters in history? You know, it's not always the famous people. It's the people whose actions and ideas and just pure determination change things in a big way.
It's like that butterfly effect, right? Where
Yeah.
one little thing can cause all these other big things to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why unheard histories are so important to look at. Usually history is told from, like, the point of view of the winners or the people in charge, right? But there are so many stories we don't hear about people who did amazing things, even if their names aren't in the textbooks.
Makes me wonder, like, whose stories are we missing? Whose voices aren't we hearing? Would the world look different today if we knew about all those people?
Those are great questions. It shows that we ought to be curious, dig deeper, look for those untold stories, and challenge how history's always been told. It's about getting a bigger, more complete picture of the past and realizing just how complicated everything is.
It's like we're history detectives trying to put all the pieces together, and every new story we find adds something new to the puzzle.
I like that. And like we saw with these unsung heroes, sometimes those missing pieces are actually the most important ones. They change how we think about things, they inspire us, and they remind us that anyone can make a difference.
So, as we finish up our deep dive here, what's the big takeaway for our listeners? We talked about those 5 Rs and learned about these awesome people, and we talked about finding those unheard histories. What does it all add up to?
Well, for me, the big thing is that history isn't just some boring story set in stone. It's like this living, breathing thing made up of a million different stories. By understanding how those stories all fit together, how they affect each other, and how they still shape the world today, we can really understand who we are and where we came from.
It makes you realize that you can change things too, right? I mean, if those people could have such a big impact, then we can too.
Yeah, totally. It's like a challenge to think about the world differently, to find the unsung heroes in our own lives, and to ask ourselves, how am I going to make my mark? Maybe someday someone will be doing a deep dive into your life.
Wow, that's a great thought to end on. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. It's been amazing.
It was my pleasure.
And to everyone listening, keep digging, keep asking questions, and keep finding those hidden stories. You never know what you'll find.